Now, there was a video that I wanted to show. When we talk about capitalism and pride, I think this is something that we should really, get into and talk about, because police are really just the capitalists. They're just the muscle for capitalists. I actually found this to be quite refreshing.
It's the early hours of a Sunday morning.
This video is called No Cops Allowed, The History of Pride. So this is going to be interesting, talking about how pride started and why it is crazy and dumb and stupid for cops to be at pride. And really it's just propaganda. So let's go.
It's the early hours of a Sunday morning in December 1890. According to later newspaper reports, a person who police officers view as male is arrested on Kearny Street in San Francisco. This person's crime? Being clad in a complete woman's outfit. When arrested, this person, who today would likely be accepted as a transgender woman, gives her name as Betty Portell and is hit with the maximum sentence, 6 months in jail for wearing women's clothing in public.
So my question is this what you want things to go to? The police arresting us just for expressing our right to, free speech and wearing what we want to wear as human beings? Let's continue.
Part 1. The History of Pride. In San Francisco in 1863, as part of an anti-indecency campaign, the city adopted a law that criminalized a person appearing in dress not belonging to his or her sex. This law remained in effect for 111 years. It's August 1966. San Franciscan trans women, drag queens, and transvestites had been hanging out at Compton cafeteria for years. But recently, Compton Cafe staff had begun harassing their trans patrons and calling the police on them due to concerns from management that trans patrons are causing them to lose more desirable business. This has led to a rise in arrests of trans women under anti-cross-dressing laws. The night of the Compton cafeteria riot is one such night. The police arrive and an officer grabs
one of the queens, and she threw her coffee in his face.
Someone had thrown coffee in his face, and there was tables turned over.
Compton's erupted. People started throwing everything they could get their hands on at the police.
All of the sugar shakers went through the windows and the glass doors. I think I put a sugar shaker through one of those windows.
The hustlers kicked the police and punched them, and the drag queens beat them with their heavy purses. The cops retreated outside.
Beat him up! Beat him up! Take that heavy purse and mollywop him. Go ahead, girl. Sorry, I just had to comment on that.
Beat them with their heavy purses. The cops retreated outside to call for backup, but cafeteria customers, maybe 60 in all, poured into the streets through the broken doors and windows and kept fighting as the paddy wagons pulled up. Before it was over, a police car was destroyed, the corner newsstand was set on fire, and years of pent-up resentment boiled out into the night. It was the first known instance of collective, militant, queer resistance to police harassment in United States history.
It's June 28th, 1969 in the USA. For years, police raids on gay bars have been conducted frequently, and arrests are made based on laws against cross-dressing and against homosexual sexual conduct. Those hardest hit are transgender people, butch lesbians, effeminate gay men, and drag queens.
So, like they said, police, who are the arm of the state, are constantly harassing people in my community. Constantly. For just existing. That's not a class issue? Come on, man. Arms of the state coming up against you?
In the early morning hours around 1 a.m., police officers raid the Stonewall Inn in New York City. Standard procedure is to line up the patrons, check their identification, and have female police officers take customers dressed as women to the bathroom to verify their sex, upon which any people appearing to be physically male are arrested. Butch lesbians and trans men are patted down by male police officers, and if judged to be female, suffer the same fate. This night, though, things are different. After decades of arrests and harassment, queer folk are fed up. Those who are not arrested are let outside, but this night, instead of going home as usual, these other patrons gather around the outside of the bar, refusing to leave. A butch lesbian, identified by eyewitnesses later as Stormy Delaveri, is handcuffed for wearing men's clothing and is escorted to a waiting police wagon. She tries to escape, and a police officer hits her on the head with a baton. Dazed and angry, she yells out at the crowd, "Why don't you guys do something?" as an officer grabs her and heaves her into the back of the wagon. The crowd erupts. Coins, rocks, and beer bottles are thrown at the cops, and the tires on the police wagons are slashed. The officers barricade themselves inside the Stonewall Inn and call for reinforcements. The New York City Tactical Patrol Force respond and arrive to free the police trapped inside the Stonewall Inn. The skirmish transforms into a full-blown riot, and people are injured on both sides. By 4 a.m., the streets are quiet once again, but not for long.
So when police show up to Pride, that's like an arsonist coming up dressed as a firefighter to try to put out the fire. Like, really? Come on. Like, nah. You guys have been oppressing us over and over. That's like a black liberation march, and a bunch of police show up to express solidarity when y'all were bashing our heads in years ago. Come on now.
News of the riot spreads, and the next night thousands of people gather outside the Stonewall Inn, including hundreds of police officers. A second riot breaks out. Gay and trans rights activist Marsha P. Johnson climbs up a lamppost and drops a bag with a brick in it down on a police car, shattering the windshield. The riot carries on for hours and makes news headlines around the state. 1 year later, in New York, San Francisco, and LA, the first ever Pride marches are held in commemoration of the Stonewall riots.
And while we're talking about it, if somebody who's trans can't get a job, even if they're professionally dressed, that's also part of the class issue. Because you can't be who you truly are, even if you do it in a professional way. Just saying. That's a class issue, man.
The US, Pride marches continue to be held on this anniversary of LGBT+ folks fighting back against police violence. Homosexuality remains illegal in many states under state sodomy laws for years to come. It's 1982, USA. A 29-year-old bartender in Atlanta, Georgia is arrested for engaging in oral sex with another man in his own home. He contends his case and it reaches all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. The court dismisses his contention and his arrest is deemed legal. He is sent to prison for more than 12 months for going down on a consenting adult man in the privacy of his own home. As some queers decided that we don't like cops, it's because the spirit of Pride itself is about fighting back against the arm of force and state-legitimized violence of the legal system called the police. Now police stations have rainbow liaisons and commitments to diversity and rainbow police cars. Welcome to New Zealand, where up until a few years ago, many men still had a criminal record of homosexuality that could be divulged to employers. But the cops have rainbows on their cars now, so everything's fine, right? Right? No, that's not how that works. But that was before my time. We got rid of those laws. It's different now. People who are directly affected by those laws are still very much alive and still very much going to Pride. And do you think from the bottom of your soul that there's no more discriminatory laws that cops uphold? Whew, I could write a novel about how the legal system and the institution of policing harms poor and low-income and unhoused people wildly disproportionately to wealthy people.
And it includes people who are queer. That's what it does. It includes us. So, like I said, it is better to unite with us and fight against the corporate dictators than to keep this division going. Because this division is what's hurting us. A man in a lace front wig and a sequin skirt is not your problem. Capitalism is your problem. That person that's twirling a baton, in a leotard in a pride parade, got to work at, Macy's at the makeup desk and, for, starvation wage. Wouldn't it be better to team up with that guy that works at the makeup desk that does drag shows on the weekends at the clubs, and maybe, just maybe, actually form unions or create a worker co-op so that you guys won't have to worry about getting starvation wages? Maybe, just maybe, we can actually push for something that doesn't oppress all of us collectively under these corporate dictators. Just because he's femme and wears lipstick is not going to hurt you. What's hurting you is Vanguard, BlackRock, Amazon, ExxonMobil, Raytheon. Those are the people who we should be going up against. The U.S. military are the groomers. These are the people we need to actually fight up against. Somebody getting gender reassignment surgery is not your issue. Like, good God, let's get a grip. When we talk about worker solidarity, are you saying all workers except queer workers? Come on now. Come on. Are we actually going to be that way? Hell, Fidel Castro realized the error of his ways. He realized it. He apologized. Why can't you? Like, holy shit. Let me continue.
But that's a video for another time. If you're a police officer and you want to come to Pride, take the day off. Take off your uniform and come in mufti. Mufti is
more like quit and then come to Pride. Get a job doing something else. Hell, become a firefighter or become an EMT, paramedic. Stay away from police.
Is plain clothes for all my US friends. If you're a cop and you insist on marching in the parade in police uniform, think about why that's important to you. It's my opinion that that is disrespectful to the memory of Pride and to the memory of all those people of gender and sexual minorities who have suffered harms at the hands of the justice system. And why do you think, after years of police upholding often violently racist and homophobic and transphobic laws, that would welcome them with open arms? Our communities are healing, and having those who represent the institutions that dealt out this abuse to the communities try to weasel their way into a march that literally commemorates an instance of such police violence is unacceptable. I personally don't have beef with any individual police officer. I do think it's insulting and ahistorical for cops in uniform to attend Pride celebrations as representatives of the institution of policing. The cops who insist on inserting themselves into Pride against the wishes of the majority of people in rainbow communities are, by that very insistence, proving that they are not our allies.
Corporations are not our allies. Capitalism is really just donning rainbows as a way to make it seem like, oh, well, we can sell to you. Your money's good with us, when in reality, they're still oppressing. What about the people who are in other countries who are working in sweatshops that are queer, who are also being oppressed by these same corporations? They don't care about us. They don't. They never have, and they never will. So when people talk about, oh, but, this corporation's dedicated to LGBTQ people, no, they're not. Maybe if it's a small business, the business owner, is dedicated. you know, but these corporations, no. Harlan Crow, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, the people who run Apple, they're not dedicated to, you know, solidarity with us. No. It's what's popular. You know what was popular in Germany in the 1930s? Nazism. You know who was down with Nazis? Hugo Boss, Mercedes-Benz, BMW. It was because they're capitalists, man. They're going to be down with whatever's most popular at that point in time socially.